If you've been told you have to give up carbs like bread, pasta, rice, or potatoes in order to control your blood sugar, you've been told wrong. The real problem isn't the carbs themselves. It's that most people have no idea there are simple ways to eat the exact same carbs without the spike. I've helped tens of thousands of people through fat loss challenges, and the ones who get the best results aren't the ones who give up carbs forever. They're the ones who learn how to eat them the right way. So in this video, I'm going to show you the top 3 ways to eat things like bread, rice, pasta, and potatoes without spiking your blood sugar, the exact science behind why each one works, and the simple steps to start using them at your next meal. And as a bonus, at the end, I'll show you the smarter version of every carb you already eat so you can swap your way to lower blood sugar without giving up a single thing that you love. Now to start, I'm going to show you the strangest blood sugar trick that I've ever come across. There is a study where researchers took a batch of freshly cooked white rice and fed it to a group of people, then measured their blood sugar response. A few days later, they fed the exact same people the exact same rice, but this time the rice had been cooked, refrigerated for 24 hours, and then reheated and served. And they were surprised to discover that the reheated leftover rice produced a blood sugar spike that was way smaller than the fresh rice. How is this possible? When you cook starchy foods like rice, potatoes, pasta, oats, the heat and the water causes the starch molecules to swell up and open wide. That's exactly why your body can break them down so fast and dump a flood of sugar into your bloodstream. But when the starch starts to cool, something amazing happens. The starch molecules slowly reorganize themselves into a tight, packed structure that your body can no longer break down the normal way. It's literally a different substance at that point. Scientists call this new substance resistant starch because it resists your digestive system. Instead of getting absorbed in your small intestine as sugar, it passes all the way through to your large intestine where your gut bacteria feed on it. So your blood sugar has a smaller spike. And then here's the part that really blew me away when I first heard it. The longer you let the food sit in the fridge, the more resistant starch you create. Just 24 hours in the fridge increases the resistant starch in cooked rice by 158%. Day 2 increases it even more. And the effect keeps going for up to 4 days after you cook it. Now, obviously much past that, we don't want the food to spoil or be bad or anything to that nature. But if you let it sit for a couple days, you're literally building a healthier food while doing absolutely nothing. Now, let me show you exactly how to use this for the carbs most people eat. For rice, potatoes, and pasta, the process is the same. Cook it like you normally would. Throw the leftovers in the fridge for at least 12 to 24 hours, then eat it cold or warm it back up gently the next day. Reheating only reduces a small amount of the resistant starch. The rest stays locked in. But here's where it gets really interesting. This trick works for bread too. And the best way to do it is freeze it. There was a study that tested 4 ways of preparing white bread. Fresh, frozen, then defrosted, toasted from fresh, and finally frozen, then defrosted, then toasted. And the bread that was frozen first and then toasted from frozen produced a 39% smaller blood sugar spike than fresh bread. So if you eat bread regularly, stop storing your loaf on the counter, buy it and toss it straight into the freezer. And then every morning, pop a slice straight from the frozen into the toaster. That one change turns your regular toast nearly 40% less of an insulin spiking food without giving up bread at all. And there's one more bonus to add to this method that very few people know about. When you eat resistant starch at one meal, it doesn't just lower your blood sugar at that meal. It actually lowers your blood sugar at your next meal too. Scientists call this the second meal effect. The short chain fatty acids your gut bacteria produce while fermenting the resistant starch circulate in your bloodstream for hours, improving your body's response to whatever you eat next. So eating cold rice or a cold potato salad at dinner makes your morning oatmeal spike smaller as well. You're essentially upgrading your metabolism into the next day just by eating leftovers. Now, as always, overdoing carbohydrates is going to work against your fat loss goals. But if you do still like to work some of those in, potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, some toast, some oats now and then, using this overnight trick is a game changer to still be able to enjoy your favorite carbs. This next method is so simple, you can start using it at your very next meal, and it doesn't require any prep work, any new ingredients, or any change in what you eat. There's a landmark study where researchers gave participants the exact same meal. Protein, vegetables, bread, and orange juice, and measured their blood sugar response. Then they fed the same people the same meal again on a different day. But this time, instead of eating it however they wanted, they were told to eat the vegetables and the protein first and save the carbs for the end. The result? When the carbs were eaten last, their peak blood sugar dropped by nearly 29% at the 30-minute mark and 37% at the 60-minute mark. And their total insulin response was nearly 50% lower. That is a massive difference for a change that costs you absolutely nothing. So what's actually happened in the body when you eat in that order? Three things, and they all stack on top of each other. The first is what I call the fiber shield. When you eat non-starchy vegetables first, broccoli, salad greens, cucumbers, spinach, peppers, the soluble fiber forms a thick gel-like coating along the inside of your gut. So by the time the carbs arrive, they have to pass through the fiber gel before they can be broken down into glucose. Digestion slows way down and sugar trickles into your bloodstream instead of crashing in like a wave. The second mechanism is even more powerful, and most people have never heard of it. When you eat protein and fat before carbs, your gut releases a hormone called GLP-1. GLP-1 is the exact hormone that drugs like Ozempic are designed to mimic. So when you eat in the right order, you're getting your body to produce its own version of Ozempic for free. It tells your pancreas to start releasing insulin before the carbs even arrive. So your body is primed and ready, and it slows down how fast food leaves your stomach, stretching the sugar release over a longer window instead of dumping it into your blood all at once. The third mechanism is the fat break. When you eat fat alongside carbs or before them, the fat physically slows how fast food moves from your stomach into your small intestine. That gives your body more time to handle the glucose coming in, so the spike is smaller and the crash that comes after is gentler. This is also why eating carbs alone is the worst thing you can do for your blood sugar. A plain piece of white toast with nothing on it, a bowl of plain white rice, a naked baked potato, there's nothing slowing the digestion down. So the glucose just hits your bloodstream like a freight train. The moment you add fat or protein, the entire dynamic changes. So here's how to put this into practice. When you sit down to eat, follow this order. Start with your non-starchy vegetables, your salad, broccoli, green beans, avocado, whatever you got. Eat the bulk of that first. Then move to your protein and fats. Your chicken, your fish, your eggs, your beef, avocado could apply here as well. Eat the bulk of that next. And then finish with the carbs, the bread, the rice, the potatoes, the pasta. You just want to make sure that most of the vegetables and protein are gone before you start in on the carbs. And if you're sitting down to a meal where the carb is mixed in, like a pasta dish or a stir fry, pair it with fat and protein on the plate. A drizzle of olive oil on your rice, a pat of butter or avocado on your bread, a piece of fish or chicken alongside your potatoes or pasta. That alone will slow the glucose release dramatically. Applied to 3 meals a day, every day, that adds up to a massive metabolic shift over the course of a year without giving up a single carb that you love. Next, I'm going to show you something you can do 15 minutes before a high carb meal that crushes the blood sugar spike before the food even hits your stomach. It costs about $4 at any grocery store in America. There's a group of prescription drugs called alpha glucosidase inhibitors, and they're prescribed to type 2 diabetics, specifically to lower blood sugar spikes after meals. These drugs work by blocking the enzyme in your gut that breaks starch down into glucose. Less enzyme activity means less glucose hits your bloodstream, which means a smaller spike. Here's what almost no doctor will tell you. There's something sitting on the shelf at every grocery store that does almost the exact same thing. I'm talking about apple cider vinegar. In a landmark study, researchers gave people a high-carb meal with about 1.5 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar beforehand. And in insulin-resistant participants, the vinegar improved their insulin sensitivity by 34% in the first hour after the meal. That's the kind of effect you would expect from a prescription diabetes drug, not a $4 bottle from the grocery store. So what's actually happening when you drink vinegar before a meal? There are 3 things working at once. First, the active compound in apple cider vinegar, acetic acid, blocks the enzyme in your gut that breaks starch down into sugar. That's the same enzyme that those prescription drugs target. So less of your starch gets turned into sugar in the first place. Second, the apple cider vinegar slows down how fast the food leaves your stomach. So instead of one big dump of sugar into your bloodstream, you get a slow trickle that your body can handle much more easily. Then the third one is the part that really surprised me. Acetic acid flips on the same metabolic switch in your body that gets turned on when you exercise. So when you drink apple cider vinegar before a meal, you're telling your muscles to pull sugar straight out of the bloodstream and burn it for energy, the same way you do during a walk or a workout. And the wild part is this works without needing any insulin at all. That's why apple cider vinegar works so well, even for people whose insulin response is already starting to break down. Now let's talk about exactly how to use it. The dose that shows up the most in the research is about 1 to 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar in a full 8-ounce glass of water. You want to drink it about 15 to 30 minutes before a high-carb meal. Timing is really important here. The studies that tested apple cider vinegar hours before a meal showed almost no effect. And one study found that even waiting 15 minutes after sitting down to eat eliminated the benefit entirely. So the window is narrow. 15 to 30 minutes before you eat is the sweet spot. Now, a few things to be aware of before you start. First, always dilute it. Never drink apple cider vinegar straight because the acid can damage your tooth enamel and irritate your esophagus. A full glass of water for every tablespoon you use is a good method. Drink it through a straw if you want extra protection on your teeth. And don't brush your teeth for at least 30 minutes after drinking it because the acid temporarily softens your enamel. Second, and this is the part most people don't realize, you don't actually need apple cider vinegar specifically. The active compound is acetic acid, and it's in every kind of vinegar. White vinegar, red vinegar, balsamic vinegar, rice vinegar, even plain white distilled vinegar from a jug. Apple cider vinegar is great because it has other health benefits beyond blood sugar, but for blood sugar effects specifically, any vinegar in your kitchen works, which means you can also get this benefit from a simple salad with a vinaigrette dressing at the start of your meal. You're stacking the meal sequencing trick from the last section with the vinegar effect from this section, both in a single bite. And one more thing to be aware of, vinegar only works on starches. It does not work on simple sugars like candy, soda, fruit juice, pastries. So don't think you can wash down a candy bar with vinegar and call it even. This is a tool for meals where you're eating real complex carbs, breads, rices, potatoes, pastas, and oats. That's where vinegar shines. Now, here's the bonus I promised you at the beginning of the video. The 3 methods I just walked you through are powerful on their own, but all 3 work even better when you start with a smarter version of the carb in the first place. Because with every category of carbs, there are versions that barely move your blood sugar and versions that hit you harder than table sugar. So let me give you the smarter swap for each of the carbs you already eat. Starting with bread. Forget the color of the bread. Look at the texture. Soft and fluffy is a blood sugar bomb, no matter what the label says. And that includes most commercial whole wheat breads, which is made from flour that's been ground so fine that your body digests it as fast as white bread. Both come in at a glycemic index around 70, which is very high. Dense and chewy bread with visible grains is what you actually want. The best swaps are real sourdough, whole grain rye, traditional pumpernickel made from whole rye kernels, or a seed bread, all of which have a glycemic index that comes in around 48 to 54. And just of note, I would check the ingredient label to make sure there's no rancid oils added into your bread recipe. Next is rice. The variety matters more than whether the rice is brown or white. The 2 easiest swaps you can find at any grocery store are basmati and parboiled rice. Both have a glycemic index of around 50, which puts them in a completely different category from regular short grain rice that comes in at around 80. Next is potatoes. 2 things matter here, the type of potato and the way you cook it. A baked potato has a glycemic index of 111. That's higher than pure sugar. A boiled potato, can make mashed potatoes, 82. And a boiled sweet potato is 44. So if you love your potatoes, boil them instead of baking them. And if you want to take it a step further, swap your white potatoes for sweet potatoes. Next is oats. Instant oatmeal, the kind in the little flavored packets, has a glycemic index of 82. That's almost as high as white bread. But steel cut oats are somewhere between 42 and 52. Same grain, completely different effect on your body. The instant version has been pre-cooked rolled flat and ground so fine that your digestive enzymes blow right through it. Steel cut is the actual oat grain just chopped with a blade, so the structure stays almost intact. And then finally, pasta. The smartest swap of all is legume-based pasta, made from chickpeas or lentils or peas or black beans. Chickpea pasta has a glycemic index of 33. Lentil comes in at 22. That's a 70% lower blood sugar impact than regular wheat pasta, with double the protein and double the fiber on top of that. It tastes almost identical when you cook it with a sauce, and you can find it at almost every major grocery store. Cook it al dente, not soft, because the more firm you can stand your pasta, the slower it digests. Now, these three methods are powerful tools for keeping your blood sugar low when you eat the carbs you love. But what if you find yourself doing everything right, eating in the right order, cooling your carbs, drinking vinegar before meals, and your blood sugar is still high? What if your fasting blood sugar is still elevated every morning no matter what you do the day before? That's a sign that something deeper is going on called insulin resistance. And what most doctors will tell you about it is wrong, because insulin resistance isn't actually a pancreas problem. It's not even a blood sugar problem. It is a storage problem. And until you fix the real cause, no diet or supplement is going to bring your numbers down for good. In my other video, I break down exactly what's actually happening inside your body when you become insulin resistant. And I walk you through the 5-step sequence to reverse it. I'll include a link to that here. Click to watch it next, and I'll see you there.